Hi, I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not be afraid of the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. If you've been looking at our website, starborninstitute.org, you'd already know that the title of tonight's show is A Wild Ride. And that is because yesterday we had a full moon at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is a fire sign, and all fire signs like action. And Sagittarius actually rules the traditional ninth house of the higher mind and of long-distance travel and foreign countries, and it rules large international organizations like the World Bank or the World Court or the United Nations. And Sagittarius also rules religion and philosophy. It's an intellectual sign ruled by Jupiter, the planet of goodness. And Sagittarius rules people who are very adept at languages. They can sort of pick up languages much easier than most people. And it also rules higher education. And so we know under a full moon that the moon opposes the sun. And that means that the full moon at 23 degrees of Sagittarius was opposing the sun at 23 degrees of Gemini. And Mercury, Gemini's ruler, has just entered the sign, and it's at 1 degree. So when the sun and the moon square or oppose each other, that is a sign of indecision or confusion. So there can be a little confusion about travel plans, or confusion about some sort of higher education qualifications, for instance, or a confusion about some pending travel that you're planning on doing, or even about an international situation. Sagittarius also rules the courts, so there could be something coming up that has to do with the courts as well. But the title of the show is A Wild Ride, and the reason why I've titled it that is that there is a very unusual thing happening in the heavens at the time of this full moon. And I can't remember ever seeing this before. It might have happened, but it's very rare. And it is that the wild ride that a lot of people can be going through, or it can be coming right up, is, I think, due to the fact that there are 4 planets in consecutive order, and each one of them is the ruler of their sign. So they're at home in the sign they rule, and there's 4 in a row. And there are 12 houses in your chart. And so 4 houses, which are all or signs, which are all extremely strong because the rulers are there, one right after the other, indicates that 1/3 of your chart is highly activated this week, like right now. And so I thought I would run over what this means, and then also what the repercussions of that can be. In other words, what is the effect of other planets that are being affected by this as well. And that's why I think we're going to have a wild ride, because, whoa, who knows? So the first planet that's at home in the sign it rules is Neptune in Pisces. And so Neptune rules Pisces, and Pisces is a double-bodied mutable sign. It rules dreams and hopes and wishes. And it rules wanting to be very creative. Pisces rules the feet, and it rules dance. So Pisces are good dancers, and they love music. But Pisces also rules charity and forgiveness, and it rules kidding yourself. And it also rules escape from something that you can't deal with, or that you are in denial about. And so it can also lead to escape through alcoholism, drug addiction, or sexual promiscuity. So there's those things going on as well. But it's the ruler in the sign. I mean, that's making the sign very strong. And usually when a ruler is in the sign they rule, whatever that sign represents, will be activated for the good. Except that Neptune in Pisces is the only planet of the four, in the four consecutive signs, that has no backup. There aren't any planets in the other water signs, Scorpio or Cancer. So right ahead of Neptune in Pisces are two other planets, Mars and Jupiter in Aries. Well, Aries rules new beginnings, and Mars is its ruler. And on top of that, Jupiter is there. And so, since Aries rules new beginnings, and it rules pioneering efforts, and it's ruled by Mars, which is a dynamic, energetic planet, we can say that people who are strong in Aries sort of always want to be first. Or they have such enthusiasm, they just want to get out there and go. So a wild ride, I guess, could be instituted by them, and that would be okay. And so these two planets, but one of which is the ruler, Mars, can also indicate war, jealousy, greed, envy, hate, aggression. And so there could be a little of that involved in a new beginning as well. And it would be overdone because Jupiter is there right with that Mars. And Jupiter is a planet of abundance, so you can even have something going wrong, and there would be a lot of it. So now do you understand where I'm getting the idea of a wild ride? That could happen. And then right ahead of those two planets in Aries are two more planets in Taurus, Venus and Uranus. Venus is the ruler of Taurus. It's at home in the sign it rules. Venus rules two signs, Taurus and Libra. And so Venus can be very strong in Taurus, and it is being backed up and trined by Pluto in Capricorn. And by the way, Mars and Jupiter in Aries are being backed up and trined by the full moon in Sagittarius. So you see, it's only Neptune that doesn't have any backup. The other planets all do have backup. And so that can make Aries and Sagittarius and then Leo strong, fire signs, and then Venus and Uranus in Taurus being trined by Pluto in Capricorn, even though it's retrograde. Those three are all trining the sign of Virgo. That's strength in the earth signs. And Taurus rules hard work, and it rules good taste. Now, if we define good as expensive, that's the way a Taurus would look at it too, because they work really, really hard. They like to get paid well for what they do, and since Taurus rules investments, they like to turn that money into some sort of investment so that their money is working for them and increasing their wealth in one way or another. Taurus rules the New York Stock Exchange and the countries of Germany and Israel as well. And remember, it's backed up by Pluto in Capricorn, but Pluto is retrograde now. Also, Saturn in Aquarius is retrograde. It sort of means people have to go back and redo something. Okay, so we've covered Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. Now we come to Gemini. Well, the sun is in Gemini, and so is Mercury, the ruler of the sign. It has just left Taurus. It's only at 1 degree of Gemini, but it's there. And it rules the sign. And those two planets are being trined beautifully by Saturn in Aquarius, and that makes 3 planets that are all trining the sign of Libra as well. So you see, there is potential here, particularly among the fire signs, the earth signs, and the air signs, for better communication. That's what Gemini rules. And Gemini rules your early childhood education. Not your higher education, but what we all go through when we enter grade school or middle school, something like that. And Gemini also rules communication and easy transitional change. It rules your pals and your buddies and your neighborhood. and it rules all kinds of casual gatherings, and it rules the role of the agent or the middleman, and so it rules buying and selling and promoting and marketing and advertising and journalism. News. Gemini rules news. So you can see that it's a little bit like being in a room, 5 people being in a room, and 4 of them are supercharged. That's what it's like in the heavens right now. These 4 signs, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, 1/3 of your chart is supercharged. Because other than Neptune and Pisces, all of the rulers that are at home in the sign they rule have backup. They're being fortified. So you will be too. But if you were a party of 5 in a room and 4 people were supercharged, you might wonder, ooh, where do I fit in? What am I doing here? And so I think you could be in for a wild ride. You do not know what people who are supercharged are going to try to do next. And so that's what we have to be prepared for, because there are hurdles to be overcome. And so I want to give you a little hint of what you might be facing. And we can divide the planets up into types, characteristics or types of signs. And the first type of sign that I'm going to be talking about are the mutable signs. They're very gentle. The mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And the outstanding trait of being a mutable sign is that you're very tolerant. You're quite able to listen to both sides of a story. It doesn't matter if you agree with them or not, you are good enough to always listen to somebody else's point of view and consider it. And that's very nice. And so what we see is that's where the full moon is today. The full moon is in Sagittarius, or it was yesterday. And Sagittarius is a double-bodied mutable sign. And it is opposing the Sun in Gemini and Mercury in Gemini, that ruler, which is also a double-bodied mutable sign. Okay, so the trouble comes up not just in the fact that when the Sun and the Moon are opposing or squaring each other, it generates indecision and confusion. Okay, so we've got that. We could all be undecided about something. But the problem is that Neptune in Pisces, a double-bodied mutable sign, but the ruler of the sign, even if it doesn't have any backup, it's very strong there, and it is squaring the Sun and Mercury in Gemini, and it is squaring the full moon in Sagittarius. And Neptune also rules deceptions and omissions. Not quite telling the whole story, leaving out a few interesting facts that you don't want people to know about. It rules secrets. It rules hidden activities behind the scenes. So we have a harsh T-cross of 4 planets in mutable signs right now. And what that means, where your wild ride could come in, is that you may learn, coming right up, that someone is lying. And it's either somebody that you know has been lying to you. It could be that you've been lying to somebody. Or it can be that on a much larger scale, a more worldwide scale, somebody's lying. And we may find that out. Sagittarius rules the courts. And Gemini rules our neighborhoods and our everyday life. And then Pisces can rule what's hidden, as well as a lot of creativity. So somebody's lying. And that is going to make for a wild ride when we find that out, because we might be a little surprised at that. Then next are the fixed signs. The fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And remember I said that Venus and Uranus, and Venus is the ruler of Taurus, are both in Taurus, and they are being squared by Saturn, which is now retrograde in Aquarius. And the problem is that Saturn is a malefic planet, and so is Uranus. Uranus rules sudden, surprising change. Oops, it's in a financial sign. We have all been surprised by the quick change in the rise of just about everything, haven't we? And also the falling values in our investments. But Saturn is squaring Venus exactly. That's because Saturn is at 25 degrees of Aquarius today, and Venus is at 25 degrees of Taurus. And when Venus and Saturn or Pluto square or oppose each other, that is the sign of a betrayal. And so what that means is that a betrayal now, somewhere in our lives, could be very costly. Because, it's being influenced by the sign of Taurus, and Taurus rules money. It's a fixed financial sign. So a betrayal can be very costly. And the reason for the betrayal has something to do with the fact that it should have been done before, but it was sort of tolerated, and it wasn't done. And now it's something's got to be cut out. So a betrayal is extremely costly right now. And it's either costly to somebody who has been allowing or paying somebody else, or even businesses that sort of had their hands out for money that maybe they weren't really earning. They just wanted the money. They didn't necessarily want to do anything for it. There could be a time for that to stop, because businesses don't have enough money. The government is deeply in debt, and so something's got to be cut off because it's really no longer affordable. And even if it was some nice reason why something was continued, you have to be more practical right now, because the level of financial security is going down, not up. It's going down because inflation, which means our money doesn't buy as much. It's going down because debt is so high that along with inflation, people can't pay back their debts very easily. So that's why a betrayal can be costly, but it should have been done before. And now it just has to be done, and probably for a good reason. Then among the cardinal signs, there are Mars and Jupiter in Aries, and they are being squared by that Pluto in Capricorn. They're being trine by the full moon in Sagittarius, but that moon is such a fast mover. Yesterday it was at full at 23 degrees. Today it's out of there. So we'll look at planets that are sticking around, and it is that Mars in Aries, along with Jupiter, are squaring Pluto in Capricorn, which is retrograde. And Mars and Pluto are the rulers of Scorpio, the other fixed financial sign. And so what I think is that there can be some heavy losses now, financial losses, and they can either stop or cancel a new beginning. That's what Aries rules, new beginnings. But this Pluto is pretty powerful. It's backed up by all the planets in Taurus. And so this is a time when financial losses that people have, maybe through no fault of their own, it's just, the market drops, are going to perhaps stop or cancel some new start. At the very least, it would be a delay, a sort of a long delay. Maybe it could happen next year type of delay, but not this year. So those are the obstacles to be overcome under this wild ride that if it doesn't happen to you, count yourself lucky. But you could read about it or hear about it on the nightly news. There's just something going on. And it's going to make us perhaps get our hopes up in one direction and then feel kind of bad if things don't go right in another direction. So anyway, that's what's happening this week. What does it mean to all 12 of the sun signs? Aries. Well, Aries, your sign is loaded because it's got your own ruler, Mars, there, along with Jupiter. And it's yesterday when the full moon in Sagittarius hit at 23 degrees, it was trining the Mars and Jupiter in your sign. So that was wonderful. You could really be thinking of going on a long-distance trip, Aries, or you could have already made the plans, or maybe you're just about to make the plans. That would be nice, particularly in the summertime. Or you could be thinking about either getting a better education or working in an educational institution. Maybe that would work out well for you. It's just that there is the possibility that something you were planning on for this year might not come through, Aries, because Pluto is squaring, in Capricorn, is squaring Mars and Jupiter in your sign. So while you are full of a wonderful enthusiasm and you want to get something started, I think it's going to be delayed. And what you are going to have to maybe sort of back up and do is, I would say, it would be wise of you to slow down, back up and slow down, and maybe come at a fond wish or hope or dream of yours from a different direction, or else try to extend your timeline a lot, clear till next year, put off something till next year, when possibly it can be more affordable. No guarantee, but I would say at this time it's not affordable for one reason or another. And so it's a better time, if you've had losses in other ways, to just endure the losses, and that's enough for now. I wouldn't, even though you're so enthusiastic, I just wouldn't jump into anything right now, Aries. Because no matter how well qualified you feel for your efforts, your employer has got problems too. And whatever the employer's problems are could turn out to be your problems as well. That's why I'm saying I think you should delay some of your plans right now, because there could be a wild ride somewhere in your life in the next week or the next month. And it's better that you are somewhat stationary and prepared for it. Okay, what does it mean to a Taurus? Taurus. This is a time when I know that you are interested in working hard and doing your best, because Venus is in your sign and it's your ruler, which is great. But Taurus, you have Saturn in Aquarius squaring Venus and Uranus in your sign. And so that is an indication somewhere in your life that there is a betrayal. And the betrayal has to do with money. And it is because I think you may have been promised some money that would come available for something that you wanted to do, maybe by this summer. And I don't think the money's going to be there, Taurus. Now, the reason why is that even with Pluto trining that Venus and Uranus, Pluto is retrograde. And Saturn is squaring the planets. And what I think is that something needs to be done over. And so if it doesn't happen to you, Taurus, it could happen at a little higher level than you are. And it could be a change in management or a change in policy. And it could be enough of a change that it would throw your plans sort of to the back burner. There could be something else coming up that some money has to be used for, but it's not the project you had in mind. And so I think that, I don't think that you're hurting or anything, Taurus, and that you are working hard, But I do think that there can be a change somewhere by upper management or larger policies that are put into practice, perhaps due as a reaction to the falling market. That would mean that maybe your employer will have to trim their budgets. And if they have to trim their budgets, they might trim their management, or they could cut back some money that you thought was going to be available. And now I don't think it will be. It doesn't exactly mean that it's completely disappeared, but perhaps you are going to have to make your plans, push your plans further out, maybe even until next year, or find some less expensive way to do something. You could think about that too. Okay, what does it mean to a Gemini? Well, Gemini, Mercury just came into your sign and it's your ruler. Oh, you could be having a million bright ideas right now, Gemini. That's great. And so you could be sort of enlightened by the full moon that just occurred yesterday, because Mercury and the sun in your sign were being opposed by that full moon in Sagittarius, and that could be leading to a little indecision or confusion. But a Gemini likes to have more than one thing going at the same time. I mean, Geminis are multitaskers, and so there could be something else that you've got your mind on that you are probably not doing as your primary goal or your primary job, but you're still interested in it, and so you are devoting some time to it, but just not as much as your main effort. And so that would be comfortable for you, doing two different things. One of them would be a little slower than the other, but that's okay. Except that there are people in your midst, Gemini. Okay, so they are around you, and they're not getting the message. In other words, either they're deceiving you, okay, either they're not telling you the whole story, because Neptune is squaring your sun, and it squared the full moon as well, or else you are going to discover, maybe inadvertently, that somebody has been lying. And you would, of course, want to sort of correct your course once you find that out, because you do not want to be tainted by association with somebody or some entity that has been fudging the figures a little bit, or just omitting the truth about something. So for your own safety, if you learn of some sort of deception around, you might very carefully and quietly withdraw a little bit from that, or try not to stick around those people too much. Maybe get busy in another way if you can, because you don't want any fraud or slander or libel to rub off on you at all. And Mercury has just entered your sign. It's going to be there for a while, and so I think you can think pretty clearly about what you want to do, and that's maybe just what you should stick to. And if you find someone else that's been lying or omitting something, they do not need to be your friend forever, Gemini. They're not your type. Okay, what does it mean to a Cancer? Well, Cancer, this is a time when you can benefit from the one planet that is in a water sign, and that is Neptune, which is trining in Pisces, and it's trining your sun, and it's at home in the sign it rules. And that's important, because it's very strong for the good. And so, since Pisces rules things that are hidden behind the scenes, and Neptune is a sort of a nebulous creative planet, it's possible that you have the ability, even just through casual conversation, to learn some secrets that have been kept behind the scenes. And then you would have to decide, okay, well, what do I want to do about this? This is the real truth. I think you should just quietly absorb the truth, about someone or something that had been covered up, or an imposter that is exposed, or just somebody that they were lying, but they may have been lying through omission. Boy, that's hard to find. In other words, if somebody didn't tell you the truth, then when you find out the truth, you're going to wonder why they didn't tell you. But they could say, oh, I didn't think you needed to know, or I don't think you want to know. I mean, they're going to try to laugh it off. And what you're faced with is somebody who's been lying. And so you'll have to decide if you can, what is your tolerance level, Cancer? You're going to have to decide what you want to do about that. And that planet is trining your sun. Now, if that was a secret, that was a real important secret, and it came out, and you're one of the few people that discovered it, you might want to be very careful who you share that secret with. And you might want to get the information to the right people, but you might want to even stay in the background while you're doing that, quietly. Cancers are sort of quiet people, and they know a whole lot more than a lot of people give them credit for. And the reason why is that Cancer is a water sign, and so you're very sensitive. You can feel what's going on around you without exactly having to put it into words. And so you better decide what you want to do about some sort of lie that comes out that you may find out about. But if I were you, I would be very discreet. Make sure the information gets to the right people, but be very discreet about it if you can. Okay, what does it mean to a Leo? Leo. Well, Leo, you certainly do benefit from that full moon in Sagittarius yesterday, because the full moon trines your sun. And Mars and Jupiter in Aries are trining your sun. There's 3 planets trining your sun, Leo. So you could be supercharged. You could be up and wanting to get something underway, particularly a new beginning, because Mars is at home in the sign it rules, Aries, and that's what Aries rules. So you could be deciding that you sort of want to crack the whip and, get people in line and get a project going. And I think you do have the ambition and the enthusiasm for that, Leo. But where's the money? If you have the money, it's going to surprise me, because it could be money that you need from some other source. It might be money that was even promised to you, but that it's coming through another company, or it's coming through a government agency, or some sort of institution. And, if their financial resources dry up, yours are going to also, Leo. And so it can be that financial losses can stop or cancel a new beginning. And that could really affect you, Leo. So, I'm talking about a wild ride here. Something that you had been counting on, that even if it had been promised to you, if it is cut back or cut down or eliminated, at least in this year's budget, due to circumstances beyond anybody's control, then those financial losses will have to be accepted. If somebody wants to stay in business, they've got to cut costs. And so, Leo, you might have a new beginning that stops or is canceled due to a lack of funds. And so you could say, my future is a little uncertain now. Well, that's true. Saturn in Aquarius is retrograde now, and it is opposing your sun. And Saturn is the planet of delay. So future plans can be delayed right now. But because Venus and Uranus and Taurus are also squaring your sun, and Venus is the ruler of Taurus, I would say your plans are delayed because of financial losses, even if they're not yours to begin with. whoever was promising the money, they could be having financial losses, and it would affect you. And so naturally people have to cut back. So Leo, what I advise is that, you know, for anything to succeed, you have to have a good plan. Okay, well, that doesn't take money as much as really thinking about something and contacting people and organizing things. Now, you can do that without a lot of money. You can do that on your own and on your own time. So I hope you try that. Okay, what does it mean to a Virgo? Well, Virgo, this is a time, since yours is a mutable sign, that you are receiving pressure sort of on all sides. Now, it's not a completely sad story, Virgo, because you're also having Venus and Uranus in Taurus trining your sun, and Pluto in Capricorn also trining your sun. But Pluto is retrograde. There has to be some changes, or there will be some changes in management that you are associated with or in a business matter, and it'll have to be resolved in one way or another. It should have been resolved before, but it has to be resolved now. However, the wild ride comes because the full moon yesterday in Sagittarius squared your sun. Mercury, your own ruler, which is now in Gemini, it rules two signs, Gemini and your sign. And the sun as well in Gemini, both square your sun. And then, and the moon is Sagittarius, and Neptune in Pisces is opposing your sun. So these people who are very tolerant, the mutable signs, are very adaptable, conversational, have tolerant viewpoints, are always ready to listen to others. You may not find too many people like that this week, Virgo, because your sign is being somewhat sorely challenged by the full moon, the sun, Mercury, and Neptune. It's a lot. And so I would say, Virgo, that it would be wise of you to step back. I don't think that you're necessarily losing any money right now, but it would be wise to step back so that you do not make yourself a target, because Virgos don't like wild rides. They really don't. Virgo is a logical sign. It's a well-organized sign. But wild rides, you wouldn't want one, Virgo, and you wouldn't like it. So step back, because Virgo is a person who thinks ahead all the time, and they're really good problem solvers. So if other people get stuck in something, they're going to come to you, Virgo. They're going to ask you to solve their problems for them. How much of that do you want to do? Virgos are always helpful to others, but you have to carve out a little downtime just for yourself to be quiet and peaceful. And I think as you discover things around you, such as a lie or a deception, rather than say anything, it's a better time for you to withdraw and more or less think things over. And you can come to a conclusion later, but I would say get a lot of rest and think things over right now, and that's enough. Let the world go through its wild ride. It'll settle down again. But withdraw a little bit for your own self-protection. Okay, what does it mean to a Libra? Libra. Well, Libra, your sign is affected, both in a good way and in a not so good way, by the way the planets are set up, because the full moon yesterday at 23 degrees of Sagittarius sextiled your sun. So you could be planning a long distance trip, or you could be wishing for one anyway, or thinking about taking a course in higher education just to sort of sharpen your skills. That would be a good idea. But at the same time, Libra, and the Sun and Mercury in Gemini are trining your Sun, and Saturn in Aquarius is trining your Sun. Okay, so those are all the good things that are fortifying you. So your sign does have a lot of support, Libra. So if you get on a wild ride somehow, you will know who to go to for advice. And you should not hesitate. You should go and ask somebody to help you with the problem if you suddenly have one. You'll know the right people to go to, which is good. What you also need to do is stay away from a lot of people who are supercharged right now, particularly the aggressive ones, or the ones who are jealous, or who are envious, or who are very greedy. And the reason why is Mars and Jupiter in Aries are opposing your sun sign. And Pluto in Capricorn is squaring your sun sign. So, if you have a problem, you'll know who to go to help you, and you will get help, which is fine. But the other side of the coin is, if you don't like wild rides, then you need to have your defenses up. And you need to be a little bit choosy about who you see or what you do this week. And think defensively. Just say to yourself, I do not want to run in to anybody who is jealous or envious or greedy or warlike or angry at me. So, Libra, you don't want to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, do you? Well, so make sure you're not there. Because that Mars and Jupiter they're really opposing your sun sign right now. And they're strong. And they have backup from that full moon. So you have to be careful right now and defensive. So I wouldn't jump into anything right now, Libra. But just remember, if a problem does come up, you will know who to go to get a good answer. You will get the help with it that you need. Okay, what does it mean to a Scorpio? Well, Scorpio, this is a time when I would say that financially, the deck is stacked against you financially. And the reason why is that there's a lot of planets in fixed signs, and yours is a fixed sign. So all the fixed signs have to be careful financially. And that is because Saturn in Aquarius is squaring your sun, Scorpio, and Venus and Uranus in Taurus are opposing your sun. That's the other financial sign. And then your rulers, Mars and Pluto, Mars is in Aries, Pluto is in Capricorn. They are harshly squaring each other. You would not win a financial argument if you got in one, so stay out. And instead, whatever money you have, I would suggest you just speak up and handle it yourself. And if I were you, I would cut costs. You're going to need to. And something should have been ended before. Maybe last year or the year before. Something like that. It should have had a clean cut. But it didn't. And so you may have kept paying. Perhaps because you were too busy doing something else. But that's it. Now whatever you're doing with money, you are responsible for how it turns out. And you are going to have to make sure that you're doing your best. And so you're going to have to cut your losses. If you have debt, you've got to try to sell something and get that debt down. You are as much a victim of inflation as everybody else. And if you have investments, they have been decreasing in value, not increasing. That's those planets in Taurus, which rules investments, opposing your sign. So this is financially a time when you need to make sure that there is no waste, no monetary waste in your life at all. I mean, even if you had a lot of money, there still should be no waste. These are not the times to be wasting money on anybody or anything. It doesn't mean that you can't provide well for your loved ones, or it doesn't mean that you can't keep supporting a company that you might be starting or something like that. But actually, these aspects are not too good for money management right now, and that's what your sign rules, money management. And so you need to pull back. And if something hasn't ended, and if you've been supporting it, that is money wasted. Because there isn't a whole lot coming back from that, and you know it. And so you've got to stop it. Whatever you have, Scorpio, this is a time when you need to very carefully keep your hands on it. Not anybody else's, just keep your hands on it, if you can. Because aspects are such that you could have a wild ride. And you would not like that. And you have to conserve losses, because some things are beyond our control. And certainly the world economy is beyond our control, mainly because the whole world seems to be out of kilter a little bit, in big ways. And so that's why you need to hang on to what's yours, if you can, and not waste a dime. Okay, what does it mean to a Sagittarian? Well, Sagittarius, the full moon yesterday was in your sign. Congratulations, Sagittarius, because it was backed up. Mars and Jupiter in Aries were trining it, which is great for you. It simply means that you could be very excited about a new start, and it could even be somebody else's idea. But if they've been talking to you about it, then you can be getting excited about it too. And so then the next question is, so where's the money coming from, Sagittarius? Because, you know, things sound good when somebody is telling you all the good news about something. But how much information do you really have about something right now that is coming from more than one source? In other words, if you're just listening to even your best friend telling you about something great, but you have no corroboration of what they're saying in any way because you're not talking to anybody else about the same thing, then how do you know they're telling you the whole truth? And the reason I'm asking is because that Neptune in Pisces squared the moon in your sign. The moon and Neptune in harsh aspect, in square or opposition, they're two visionary planets. It means they're not getting together the right way. So you might be just hearing the good news, but not all the news. Because the Sun and Mercury yesterday under the full moon were in Gemini, and they squared your Sun, and Neptune is opposing your Sun, where your moon was. So even if Mars and Jupiter are trining your Sun, that is not enough to cover up what you might call due diligence. In other words, no matter what somebody's telling you, you have got to have it corroborated before you make a decision about something. So you need to sort of get it in writing, or you need to get a third party who is able to check things out and say, oh yes, this is true, or here is the rest of the story. Maybe you should know about that. And then decide what you want to do. Sagittarians are very intelligent people. You'll be able to decide what to do, but you really have to have all the facts first, not just the ones that sound good. Okay, what does it mean to a Capricorn? Well, Capricorn, this is a time, Capricorn, when you too can be excited by the fact that Venus and Uranus in Taurus are trining your Sun. They're both the love planets. That means you're pretty popular, Capricorn, and they're trining the Virgo Sun as well. But you have another problem. Remember I said that's why the show is called A Wild Ride. And that is because Mars and Jupiter in Aries are squaring Pluto in your sign, Capricorn. And the problem is Mars and Pluto are the rulers of Scorpio. Well, Scorpio doesn't have anything in it, but its rulers are in harsh aspect. And Scorpio rules credit, debt, taxes, loans, insurance, inheritance, grants, money coming in from any other source. And Scorpio rules the whole medical field. And so this is a time that you really have to look over your bills, Capricorn, and you have to say to yourself, well, okay, are these all in the correct order, or am I getting overbilled? Or should I be getting billed for this at all? I didn't okay it. Do you know what I mean? You have to sort of look at what people are doing. There can be deceptions around. And that's because Neptune in Pisces has no backup. But it's being squared by the Sun and Mercury in Gemini, and it's being squared by the full moon in Sagittarius. So even if you have a very good idea of what your budget will allow, I would say it wouldn't hurt you to sit down and very quietly look over who you're doing your financial transactions with. And make sure that at least if you're paying a bill that it is the correct bill. Because it may not be. I mean, a lot of people, particularly companies or government agencies or institutions, are facing financial losses. Well, they want to make it up, you know. They could tack on a little extra fee somewhere and bill you for it. So you need to really look very closely at who you're paying your money to. And check them out real closely. Make sure they're all legitimate. And if they're not, you need to stop something right away before you have to pay anything more. So just be more careful if you can. Okay, what does it mean to an Aquarian? Well, Aquarius. This is a time, Aquarius, when you can be very hopeful about the future, and that is because that Sun and Mercury in Gemini are both trining your Sun where you have Saturn in your sign. And Saturn is now retrograde. And so, in a way, Saturn being retrograde in the sign of the future, which is your sign, Aquarius, means we have to think our future over again. We have to take another look at the future. Your future dreams, or where you thought you would be this year, or where you want to be next year. And you have to ask yourself, okay, is this what I really want? It's like doing a double check at the last minute. But it's important. And as long as Saturn is retrograde, it does mean that you have to make real sure of what your future plans are. And Saturn rules commitment. How committed are you? Or is there something in your dealings that you thought was just going to sort of go on forever, and you're realizing that time marches on, and oops, maybe you have to come up with a decision. Maybe you have to handle something that was a sort of a problem or an issue that had been around for a long time, and now you really have to face it. And it's nice that you have two planets trining your Sun, the Sun and Mercury in Gemini. And then the full moon in Sagittarius sextiled your Sun. The lights that were opposing each other, they're not hurting you. And so I really think that you should, this is a time when you have to conclude something. Now, it doesn't mean that you would end something right now, but you would need to conclude your idea about what you're doing with it. You know, you have to say, okay, I'm gonna just let it ride some more. I've been letting it ride for a while. Oh, I'll let it ride some more. I don't think that that's exactly the right thing to do, but if that's what you decide to do, fine. But on the other hand, none of us knows what tomorrow is going to bring. And the world is a little shaky right now. And in order to avoid a wild ride, maybe one at a later time when you are not as well able to handle it, maybe you should think about handling something now while you can. And it might be that you just want to rededicate yourself to something and become stronger. You could do that. Your sign does have good support now. So go and talk to people. If you need some suggestions, you'll be able to get some good advice from people, because Gemini rules advice. And the moon and Mercury, are the sun and Mercury are trining your sun. So you'll have to decide how you're really going to handle something that's been around for a while, that has not been concluded. But you have to decide if you want to let it ride or if now is the time to handle it. So good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Pisces? Well, Pisces, this is a time when you can certainly be yourself, Pisces. And the reason why is there's nothing trining your sun. In other words, you have Neptune in your sun sign. And that can make you a visionary. It can make you have big hopes and dreams and wishes. And you can certainly be excited about seeing a better world and being part of it. You could be very altruistic right now. But at the same time, the sign of Pisces has no support. There's nothing in Scorpio, and there's nothing in Cancer. And so, Pisces, you're a little bit on your own right now. And remember that a planet at home in the sign it rules is generally activated for the good, because it's very strong there. So I would say, Pisces, if you have a very fond dream that maybe you haven't even been telling anybody about, I'd stick to it. Really stick to what you think can really happen. I had a friend once who said, a dream isn't real until you make it come true. And so, I don't know if this is the time for you to start making it come true, Pisces, or not. But I would say you're probably getting pretty close. So you should try to think about it a little bit. The full moon in Sagittarius squared your sun and Neptune, and the sun and Mercury in Gemini also squared your sun. There is somewhere in your life, Pisces, there is a conflict. There are some mixed messages. And it can be that you're sort of caught in the middle, don't quite know who to believe. So I think you're going to have to go behind the scenes, which you're very good at, because that's what your sign rules. And you're going to have to dig deeper for the facts. Just try your hardest and spend some time on this, trying to find out the truth behind the scenes. Because the success of your dream might depend on what you find behind the scenes. And that would be dependent on whether someone had been telling you the truth or there was a cover-up. And you need to find that out first. Either way, I think you can still make your own dreams come true. But it would be better if you knew the whole truth. So do a little digging behind the scenes if you can, Pisces. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, you can see the show and read our blog on our website, starborninstitute.org, or I can send you the show if you subscribe to it on my Karen Campbell YouTube channel, and I'll send it to you on Wednesday evenings at 8 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. And until then, I'll see you next week. Bye.